This episode of Screens from the Basement is sponsored by Terror Cards. Terror Cards is an online trading card game that you can find on your App Store on Apple and on Android. Hello, Scream Demons, and welcome to the Screens from the Basement podcast with Sam and Casey. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Casey. Joined with me is my co-host on this podcast, on this project, Sam Len. Sam, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. We've got an exciting guest in the basement today. Yeah. How are you doing, Casey?
I'm doing awesome because, like you said, we have an exciting guest joining us here in the basement. He is the author of the latest release of Hemlock Avenue. This is book one, Hopes and Nightmares. Author Richard T. Wilson. Richard, welcome
Hey guys,
to the show.
Thanks for having me on the show. We're excited to be here.
Yeah,
we're very excited to have you on. We both had a chance to read Hemlock Avenue. We both had a really good time reading this book.
Thanks.
This book, we always love diving into all different genres of horror, whether that's movies, whether that's comic books like this, graphic novels, or if it's just books in general. But that makes me wonder, my first question for you, what's your history with horror?
You know, for me, it was as a little kid going back and seeing things like Planet of the Apes, for instance. I mean, that's sci-fi, but just anything that was like that could actually talk about, tell a story about what was going on in society at the time. That's what got me as a little kid. Didn't even have to be horror, but I was into horror from the minute I saw Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello beat Frankenstein as a little kid. I mean, I was just like, that was the first thing. Actually, The Blob was the first thing. That's the real first thing. But then the horror-wise, seeing Frankenstein and Dracula for the first time, that was it. I was hooked. Afternoon TV, and I was just like, that's it. Famous Monsters, bought all that stuff as a little kid, when we could or whatever. And I've always been hooked on that. I also loved, even though I didn't have a lot of it, again, because, didn't have tons of money back then when we were growing up, but the old Warren stuff like Vampirilla, Creepy Eerie. I had one of those magazines my whole life. Unfortunately, my mother never looked inside the magazine. She just bought it for me. We were in the supermarket, and I was 8 years old, and it was Vampirilla number 18. So she wasn't scantily clad on the cover. So my mom said, "Oh, I see Dracula. Okay, yeah, we'll get that." And I said, and I still have that issue intact to this day. And it blew my mind. I swear to God, that Luis Garcia Mazos, I always get his name, the illustrator in that, he only did a little bit for Warren, but I got to tell you, that is my North Star. That kind of black and white horror comic that looks like almost like photorealism, that blows my mind. And that's kind of some of the stuff. I also like the really highly stylized stuff that they had in there as well. But they had so many great artists, especially Spanish artists back in the early 70s that they brought in, and they saved the magazines because Warren was getting ready to go out of business. I mean, the costs were so through the roof for the American illustrators. He got all these guys from like they call just the Spanish invasion, they called it, and just like Gonzalez and all those. So that's really where I come from. But I've been a horror fan forever. I only just got back into doing this kind of thing when I excuse me, my voice is shot today. I semi-retired. I had a film company called Outreach Arts for years that made films for kids to raise awareness about mental health issues. Did really well in PBS. We got Emmys and all kinds of cool stuff. And, I felt really good about the work that we did, but it was very taxing. And, I had to kind of step away. And as a result, got into some teaching and then said, you know what? Let's take a crack at this, because we had made a couple horror films in between. I had a company called Mad Shelley Films, and we made The Halloween Girl, which was basically made to cope with my mom's passing. I hate to say it, it's such a downer, but it's true. And then I had a web series which she was connected to called Under the Flowers. Loved all that stuff, but I just kind of felt like I'd done all I could do in indie film. I mean, after a while, it was like, this is where we're going. We got recognized and all, and it was fun. But I mean, all I could afford to do is like 15-minute stories. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to, that was my whole career, 15-minute films, basically, Should have called the company 15-minute films, you know. So it was great, and I was really nervous. I sat down to try and write an adaptation of the first film and blow it up and expand it. And I didn't tell my wife I was doing it. I didn't tell anybody I was doing it, because I thought, oh, I don't want to fail at this. I want to be good at this, you know. And it's so much like screenwriting that it came very naturally. And I remember one day my wife and I were out one Friday night, and I said, honey, I got to tell you, I think I can write comics. And she's like, oh, great. Like, she's like, here we go again. But it worked out. And I've been writing the Halloween Girl books ever since. And then Hemlock Ave came about. I'll never write another book like that. I'll put it that way, because that came out of pure therapy, man. I mean, that came out of the pandemic and having a rough time during that. I had a really bad time, you know. And if I hadn't gotten some help, that book would have never been written. So that's a lot of stuff that just poured out. I had no plan for it. It just, everything just came out. And I know that I'll never write another book like that again, because that was like an exorcism for me. Somebody else reads it, it's just a horror comic. For me, it's like my life is like there, you know. It feels really good to unburden yourself, but I always wanted to do things that were I never was really happy with just genre. I love genre films, books, comics, and all that stuff, but I always wanted to do more with it. You know what I mean? Like, and even if it means, you know, messing up and crashing into some things, and maybe it doesn't quite make it here or there, I'd rather try, you know, to say something like that and infuse the I hate to use the word elevate because it sounds so snobby, but it's do something different with the genre, take it to a new place. Try and take it to a new place, at least attempt. And I just get tired of the same old, you know, people are rewriting the same books over and over and over, you know. It's just like, let's try some stuff, you know, and see what happens, you know, like, and that's what I grew up with. And that's what I remember, because in the early 70s, it was crazy. I kind of, you know, it was wonderful. You know, they were mixing what was going on in the street in the comic books, and Spider-Man and the horror comics and all that. And I remembered that. And so I kind of wanted to try and do the same thing with Hemlock Ave. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Hemlock Ave is it's a very melancholy work from page one to the end. And I just love that vibe, that tone in horror. The kind where it's like, it's not necessarily like, oh, this is gonna get under my skin and I'm gonna be like, you know, afraid to shut the lights off necessarily. But it's just like, it makes you just kind of wonder about mortality and what comes after, and like reckoning with life. So like, how did the idea for Hemlock Avenue come to you? You said you were, you know, kind of, it was therapeutic to
it was. I mean, it came directly out of, like, I finished up with therapy, which I'd never done before, but I needed it. And I finished up with it. Something was nagging at me. And I had been working on a Halloween Girl book that I abandoned at the time because it just wasn't going anywhere. And so I figured what I usually do is take a week and a half off and then come back and see what else is going on, you know? And I have to tell you, I just started to get so, like, angry about all the, like, it's like you turn on the news and evil unleashed in the world everywhere you look. It's like you're living in a nightmare. And I just started to get really angry about it. You know, like I just had to, like, and I found myself writing the first story, and I just, you know what I mean? I just wanted to take a baseball bat to all this evil, you know what I mean? Like that, it just go away already. Let us get back to normal, you know what I mean? And that's how it started. And then it just kept going and going. And one night when I wrote probably the most personal one for me, which is Bus Stops and Bacon, about the little boy who's waiting for his dad to come get him on the bus. I couldn't believe I was writing it. I mean, we're sitting there, and I've still got my pad out in the living room. I left my office, and it's almost time to eat dinner, and I'm still, like, writing. I'm like, I can't believe, like, this is happening. Like, this was just automatic writing, all of it. But it was all stuff that's really deep and connected to my life and really deeper feelings. Also, like the last story, Free Range, all the guys who bullshit about how great their youth was. You know what I mean? And it was great. My parents let me do anything. Oh, it's a bunch of shit. That's such bullshit. I get so tired of hearing that stuff, especially from guys my age. You know what I mean? It's like we had the worst. You guys ever watch any of these documentaries? There's a documentary about a park in North Jersey called Action Park.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that you know what it was like then.
Yeah.
Okay. It was nuts to grow up in that time, and I get so tired of everybody, talking about how great it was. Man, it wasn't great. It sucked. It was a terrible time to be a kid.
Yeah.
Great music. But just all this stuff. You know what I mean? And I think just it was just kind of trying to bat down illusion and just I don't know. It was just a lot of angst coming out, and I never would have been able to write it had I not been, gotten a little help.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't ever want to write it again. So it was very hard to write.
Yeah.
I don't mean
Was there any stories that didn't make the cut? Because this is
I've got a bunch.
It's an anthology. It's a story. A bunch of different stories with a thematic through line through all of them. Was there something?
I have a bunch of other stories with Alma and all that I wrote earlier this year that came out that were and I really like them. We'll see what happens with them. I don't know. I've kind of got them. I'm kind of a couple years ahead. Like I'll usually have a book that I wrote like a year and a half ago will be coming out like this year. Or something. So I try and, stay ahead, but I'm not sure when the next Hemlock Ave will come out, because this year we've had 3 books. It'll be 3 books with the next Halloween Girl book in a row. We're in a really short space of time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I kind of have to slow down. It's a lot of, it's great. And when we have the resources to get these things out there, but can't do that every year. You know what I mean? But I do see probably another Hemlock Ave in the future. I'll put it that way, I enjoyed writing it. I'm not sure how far I can go with it after this next batch of stories. So I'm kind of reluctant. Do I put out another one? You know what I mean? And then just say, oh, well, we've got 2 volumes, and that's kind of, you know what I mean? With the Halloween Girl, I'm on book number 5. So, they want to keep telling stories. They love adventures, and and it's like I could see that going on and on and on. I'm not sure about Hemlock Ave whether because I don't want to imitate the Twilight Zone after a while. You know what I mean? I don't want to fall into that. The first book is very unique, and I don't want to put out something that isn't up to that vibe. You know what I mean? Without being too dark for me. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens with that. But there are stories. Absolutely. I could do another book right now if I had the resources. But Halloween Girls, the 3rd book, Gods and Monsters, comes out hopefully this October. I'm really, really excited about that. That's a real, so cool. That's probably the most horror centric of the 4 books so far. So I'm excited to share that one. It's really weird and creepy and hopefully funny. We'll see.
Awesome. We love weird, creepy, and funny. So
yes.
I just love adventure stories. You know what I mean? I just love having fun with it. And, that's one of the cool things for me is that with the Halloween Girl books, I get to go have fun and not just, whereas with the Outreach Art stuff, it was all very, intense. We're talking about suicide. We're talking about, so I said that coming from a whole career of kind of being like a artistic social worker, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. To be able to just go have some fun and just joke around, Scooby Doo it, you know what I mean? It's just it's like being 8 again. It's just the greatest feeling in the whole world, man. I love it.
And you get to play around in the greatest the greatest holiday, Halloween. You get to hang out there.
It's the best. It's the best, and we celebrate it big time here. My wife and I love Halloween, and so we always do it up big here. But that's so I kind of live in that space all year long. But that's really I've been really happy with the reception, because I wasn't sure Hemlock Ave would, because it was so personal, whether I had overshot the mark. You know what I mean? Whether people would be able to see what I was trying to say, because it was a very personal thing.
Yeah.
And I was happy to hear that. Oh yeah, okay, Good. I get that. Like they understood exactly, because I'm always afraid that it's too. I don't want it to be too convoluted. You know what I mean? You get so lost in your own head, and you're like, you're going to put this out and thinking you got something great, and it's like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but fortunately, it's been pretty well regarded. So that's cool.
Yeah. Well, so it's kind of like it's an anthology. There are multiple stories in this, but there's also a lot of like there's that thematic through line of kind of like I'd almost say like the consequences of life. And you have a very like or at least not necessarily the consequences, but just like the reflection of life and what that means as you're growing up and changing and, you know, coming to grips with the things that you've done or things that have happened to you. And through that you have like this character Alma and her
Mhm.
assistant Charlotte. How did you come up with that character? It's such a neat character. I love the like enigmatic kind of
Yes,
specter that's just yeah.
I like the fact that you can't, Alma's just kind of in the middle. You know what I mean? Like you don't know whether
Yeah.
she's going to help somebody or hurt them really, really bad. You know,
Yeah.
and Charlotte is actually the Halloween girl, so I put her in there kind of as uh, a connection,
Right.
to all that universe. It's all in the same town and all that kind of stuff. If you get into weeds or whatever. Alma is what is it? Oh, God, it just went out of my head. The actress, she was in Horror Frankenstein. Damn it! What is her name? Her look and her whole beautiful,
like the old Hammer.
It's a Hammer. Horror Frankenstein.
has this very
Dark hair.
Hammer vibe. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's
I can't think of her name. Yes.
I said
Kate
to Martin
O'Mara,
Petro, I said, base it on her because I think she is absolutely the vibe that we're looking for. Like, like you don't know what way she's going to turn. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That fascinates me. I have a deep fear of witches. So it's like, to me, it's like I grew up like the thing that scares me more than anything, like it's devil worship and witches. That's going to be, I'm telling you, I've got a story coming. I definitely am going to write a story about that because I used to have nightmares about witches invading my aunt's house who lived next door. You know what I mean? And then I had to go in and save people because the police weren't going to go in. And we got vampires. My dad's a vampire. Oh, anyway, it's a mess. But the she's based on this actress whose name I cannot remember. British actress, absolutely gorgeous.
Is it Kate O'Mara?
Thank you. I can never remember her. Kate O'Mara, yeah. And I said to Petro, because he got the first crack at the first story, and I said, got to look like her, because he was going to go with an Audrey Hepburn.
Okay, yeah.
And I could see that too. Yeah. But I wanted somebody who could look fierce, like just really quickly. And Kate O'Mara looks like she could eat you alive, and the next, you know what I mean? And if she wanted to.
Yep.
And so she's based on Kate O'Mara, like her look. But people who can turn on a dime and you don't know where they're coming from, you know what I mean? We all know people like that, unfortunately. I wanted that kind of creepiness in her too. Like, where's she coming from? What's she going to do next? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where do these people fit into this? Are they going to get this? And I don't normally write a lot of gory stuff, but there she's plucking eyeballs out and everything else, and just having a ball. Mm-hmm. And that's how angry I was, where it was just like, you wanted to kind of give evil that kind of shove, It's like, get the hell out of here, get off the stage, please. I
was about to say, after the last 6 years that we've had, that first story is very cathartic.
Good, I'm glad. Yeah. Was for me.
Yeah.
So if people want to feel some of this catharsis, how can they read the book? I'm always interested on how people consume their media nowadays.
Right now,
what would you suggest is the best way to read this, and then where can they find it?
I'm definitely going to be putting it out on Kindle too.
Yes.
So you can, because I do most of, like we were talking before, Sam and I were talking before. I can't afford to buy any more books. My office is like, I can't find my way around, So I'm definitely going to put it on Kindle, but right now it's available because it's only been out a couple months on hard paperback. You can get it anywhere. Barnes & Noble online, Amazon online. You can come to our site, rtwfilms.com, and I can send you an autographed copy from our site. and just it's really available everywhere because it's through Ingram Spark and it's distributed through all the. You can just kind of throw a stone there and you'll find it somewhere, But yeah, definitely Amazon or Barnes and Noble or your local bookstore, comic store. You can order it through there too.
Yeah.
But I will be on Kindle as well.
Yeah, that's I as people, as you can probably see, all of our backgrounds are just full
I know.
of stuff. No one has room for stuff anymore, so it's a great read on no matter what platform. So definitely,
I like reading a lot of my comics anymore, like on my iPad. I just I really do. I know that sounds like heresy to some of the guys I know, and they're like, oh my god, it's not. It's like I do both, but again, where are you going to put all this?
Yeah, where are you going to put it?
Yep.
I mean, even when you indulge yourself, like you go out to the comic store and you and your buddy go, and it's like, hey, and you come back with a stack. It's like another, it's like, I do it once a year, but I still have a stack,
Yeah.
And I hang on to a lot of stuff too. That's from my childhood that has not fallen apart, like some of the comics. You know what I mean? Like I can't get rid of these things.
Yeah.
So, but yes, that's where you get it anywhere online.
Well, and you said new Halloween Girl is coming out in October.
New Halloween
correct?
Girl, Gods and Monsters, we should be out this October, and same thing, it'll be available all platforms. So that'll also be on Kindle eventually too. So I just actually put book 2 on Kindle just recently.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
That's one I recommend. That's a good one to start with. I'll put it that way. If you're going to read any of our stuff, the best one to start with is Halloween Girl book 2 because it's an origin story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and I worked with an incredible artist on that. Eleanor Garofalo. She's just, oh my God, she's amazing. She's terrific, And the artist I'm working with now is also the artist who did the 2 stories in the middle of Hemlock Ave, Bus Stops and Bacon and Rose. Shaed R is doing the next Halloween Girl book. So I'm really excited about that. He's terrific.
That's so cool. Those are the ones that have kind of the darker color palette. And
Yes.
It's almost like the white.
Really,
like I love that art style. That was cool.
He's a really talented guy. He's from the UK.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome.
Richard, I'm going to ask one more question before we wrap this up, and we'll give another plug here to all of your work coming out. But my last question, we always leave people off with, as horror fans, all of us are horror fans. One thing we love as horror fans is a great double feature. So if someone's going to read Hemlock Ave, what 2 movies would you pair with that? So you read the book, you're like, I'm still in that vibe, I'm in that mood. What 2 movies should people watch right after?
It's funny. The first 2 movies I thought of, I was telling Sam earlier that I love the original Halloween, John Carpenter.
Yeah.
So because that movie, these books are supposed to feel like Halloween no matter what the story is. That's got that great fall, heavy, wonderful, best time of the year feeling. But also 1962 movie, The Innocents.
Okay.
With Deborah Carr and Pamela Franklin when she was a tiny little girl. As far as creepiness goes, it's based on The Turn of the Screw. A black and white. Those are the first 2 I thought of right off the bat, like just in terms of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
The Innocents is such a that's probably my favorite. I love my favorite horror. That's probably my favorite horror movie, and my favorite monster movie would be Bride of Frankenstein. But horror movie, The Innocents. Jack Clayton, Freddie Francis did the camera work before he went on to Hammer, and that movie creeps me out to this day. Like there's certain movies, like Let's Scare Jessica to Death, that indie from the early 70s, that scares the crap out of me to this day. The Other with Uta Hagen, they just, it was a really good period in the 60s and the early 70s for that type of movie. Claustrophobic. You know what I mean?
Atmospheric. Yep.
Very atmospheric.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I would say.
That's a great double feature because your book is just oozing with that atmosphere. I think that's the biggest thing I took away, just atmosphere. And I'm an atmosphere guy when it comes to Halloween spooky stories. So that's a perfect double feature. So Richard, thank you for joining us. This was awesome. Where can people follow all of your work online if they want to keep up to date with what's coming out?
You can find us online at Mad Shelley Comics. Just basically do a search and we're there, on Facebook and Twitter mostly. You know what I mean? It's still Twitter. Come on.
Yeah. No one calls it the other name.
I refuse to call it X.
Yeah.
So basically, all the Instagram everywhere. We're all over the place. Then we have our old website with all our old stuff, rtwfilms.com. You can keep up to date there with what we're doing with the comics there too. So Thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing Hemlock Ave with us. Everybody, check out this book. It's one for the ages for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Screens from the Basement podcast with Sam and Casey.
Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and if you want the video portion, you can subscribe to us on YouTube as well.
Pick up exclusive Screams from the Basement merch, including shirts, hats, totes, and so much more on our TeePublic store.
You can use our Fangoria affiliate link for all of your Fango needs. You can use that to buy any magazines, t-shirts, and anything else Fangoria related on their website. Please visit shop.fangoria.com/Screams from the Basement and use promo code Screams from the Basement to save yourself 20%. And thanks for tuning in.
And sweet screams.
This episode of Screens from the Basement is sponsored by Tarot Cards. Tarot Cards is an online trading card game that you can find on your App Store on Apple and on Android.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.